Welcome back, family. And I want to welcome you to the first episode of our new podcast series, Back Issue Book Club, BIBC. I've never said that in person, so that's what we're going to BIBC, yeah. Rich and I will be reading and then discussing comic book runs, or arcs, at least in parts of runs, from the history of all of comic books, DC, Marvel, Independence, all of that. And that can include up to modern day times too. But we know that Rich grew up reading Marvel books pretty much, and I've only been reading comics since 2021 in general. Suffice to say, we've both missed a lot. I wanted to start this not only because we have so much catching up to do, but because I felt like I wasn't reading comics anymore, even though that's weird because I only started in 2021, but that's how I started reading. I was simply collecting them based on covers or what's considered an upcoming key, and that's not why I first got into comics in the first place. So I'm excited to get back into it, reading them. Mm-hmm. This week, for our first episode, we took Rich's suggestion, and we're reading the 1982 classic limited Wolverine series by Chris Claremont and illustrated by Frank Miller. There you go. That's the classic "Come Closer" Wolverine cover, and I was lucky enough.
Closer.
Oh no. I was lucky enough to get Frank Miller to sign my number 3 of this book, so it's kind of cool that kind of apt that we're doing this one. So I know what's actually in the book, and not that just what the cover is. But yeah, I read it all today.
And I reread it today. I read it many times in my youth, but just so I was fresh with the information, I reread it today, which I haven't read the story in a few decades. So.
Oh wow, okay. So I didn't know anything about this going in, other than I assumed it was a Wolverine solo story, which it was for the most part. But I noticed as I was reading it, at first it was really tough for me to read the O apostrophe and like the AN apostrophe and the way he speaks.
Oh, okay.
It's just really. It just tripped me up a little bit, but I got used to it. And I thought it was interesting how it was almost like a noir style, a lot of internal dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
How did it appear to you after being so long?
The overall storyline was what I remembered. I still like the art a lot, but I did realize that if this story were released exactly as printed today, it would fail.
Interesting. Why is that?
I have 2 big gripes, which it didn't bother me at the time, but it bothers me now. All 4 issues of this comic book are written in a way that they assume you've never read a Wolverine comic. All 4 comics start with him explaining about his adamantium claws and his adamantium skeleton and his adamantium this and my healing factor. We just read this. If you don't know this after 3 episodes, you're not going to get it by the 4th.
That was one of the points I had. I think, where did I put it? I think I put it in my book 3 notes. Like, I don't know why they have to keep don't know why they have to keep rehashing he's a mutant and what his powers are again, ...
Yes.
That's literally my line.
And there's way too much inner thought. I don't need to know every single thought that runs through his mind. You could better illustrate it with art, which I think they do a better job of today. They have much less stuff for you to read. We've talked about this in prior broadcasts, that they assume that the reader has no understanding of taking a picture and creating a situation in their brain. So they have to micro type out every single thought, every single thing that's happening. Whereas today's art, they give the reader better credit for being a little smarter and understand, hey, he's doing that. I bet you he's mad.
Oh, his eyes are red. He's probably not in a good place.
Yeah.
Although
Well,
that's a bad example because there was no text with that one.
I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice. How many times did he say that in this book?
Yeah.
If you're jumping into 100 ninjas with adamantium claws, we have a pretty good and you finish victorious. We have a pretty good feeling that you're the best at what you do.
So to be fair, or maybe a little devil's advocate, Wolverine was already pretty well established by this point, right? Like you knew before you read this book, you knew that he could do those kinds of things, right?
Yes, he was in the X-Men and everything else. Yes.
Right. Okay.
So this was 1982. I'm trying to think what issue of X-Men was 1982. Let's see.
155.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Well, February 1980 is X-Men 133, which was his first solo story in the X-Men comics. They thought he was popular enough that they gave him his own story, a whole comic book in the X-Men series. Okay. They just said, you know what, we're not going to put in Cyclops and Colossus and Storm and Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde. She was there for 4 issues at this point. She hadn't joined the X-Men yet, but no Professor X. We're just going to have Wolverine by himself. So he was already, like I said, popular enough.
Yeah.
To dominate a full issue of one of the most popular comic books of the time.
That's popular.
Yeah. So, yeah, he was an established character. Even if he's not an established character, if you've read issue 1 and 2 and 3, by the time you get to 4, you understand he has adamantium claws, and adamantium skeleton, and a healing factor.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
I was actually getting to the point where I'm like, oh, he's going to talk about that. I'm skipping to the next panel. Yeah. I was intentionally not reading it.
Yeah, that's fair. I did think it was very interesting in the first book how I believe his name was Shingen, the lord of the daimyo, I guess.
Mariko's father. Yeah.
Yes, Mariko's father was able to like best him and like knocked his ass out basically with a kendo stick
by hitting nerve clusters and whatnot, which.
Yeah.
Again, you think about the things that Wolverine has gone through. He started by fighting the Hulk. I'm pretty sure if the Hulk hits you in the arm, your nerve cluster in your knee is going to explode. Right. Yeah. So, did you ever see the Wolverine movie, which was I'm not going to say adaptation, but used some of the same characters from this?
You talking about the specific one from like 09 or 08 or something? But it was purely Wolverine.
I guess that's when he went to Japan with Mariko and Yukio. And
no, I didn't see that.
What do you mean you haven't seen?
Cross promotion. Check it out on our main YouTube channel at Team Ohana.
A lot of people didn't like that movie because they read this series. If they just taken this series though and made a movie about it, I think it would have actually been better.
Huh.
They did use some of the scenes from the comic in that, like they rewrote it so that way it would happen. And, in a big way, I don't think it worked. And Yukio was not the same at all either. So, yeah, it was weird to say the least. But how did I get onto this tangent?
I was talking about how it was interesting how Shingen was able to essentially beat Wolverine in that fight.
Yeah.
But
sorry,
no, it's okay. I was also kind of interesting. It was interesting to see how dedicated Mariko was to like honor and like the right way to do things. That so much so that she would just accept that she was going to be abused by her assigned husband. Well,
I think that was also a nod to the intense family values and honor that Japan has. I don't think it was meant to be insulting in any way, shape, or form towards Japan families. I think it was just, saying, wow, you guys take honor to a point that nobody else does. And it's, it can work against you, I guess, in certain circumstances, but you still don't give in because you value your families that strongly. So there's nothing wrong with that.
There's a great video game that has come out in the recent years called Ghost of Tsushima, and it's about the Mongol invasion of the island of Tsushima in Japan, and this young samurai's adopted son, who is also a samurai, they get like slaughtered because they fight properly, and the Mongols are just like throw beer that's on fire, Molotov cocktails. They don't have honor in the way they fight. And this guy that you play he learns how to, from a thief, how to like go through the shadows and like, you know, assassinate and stuff. But he finally comes to his adoptive father, and his adoptive father is like disgusted with him because he doesn't fight honorably, yet he saved the island.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of similar in that regard. There was this one panel where he says they were good, and then it moves to the next panel where it shows like Wolverine in a silhouette where you just see his eyes, and it says, "But I'm the best." And I was like, yeah, that's off the chain. I love that. That was somewhere in book 2, I believe.
I'm listening. I'm just trying to find it. There's a lot of scenes like that, though.
There is, yeah.
How'd you think about him with the disgraced sumo wrestler?
Being able to just lift him over his head and just throw him down.
Yeah, and also chuck him out the window.
Yeah. That was funny. At one point, he was like, he didn't like that or something. But I was able, you'd be proud of me, and maybe not, because this is probably, you could see it a mile away, but I was not surprised. I could smell that lady from a mile away, that she was like a double agent or something. Yukio?
Yukio, yeah.
I was like, at first I was like, why is she like just begging to bang him straight away like that? And I was
is everything adamantium?
Oh, Logan. Yeah, so
clank.
I could see that. I would put a sound effect there. And it was at this point where he had gone like berserk. I think he called it berserk mode or something.
Berserker mode,
like,
yeah.
And then he was like, Mariko had never seen me this way, and I was like, wow, really? I don't know the history before the first issue, so I don't know how long he'd known Mariko, but I'm surprised that she'd never seen him go in berserk mode.
I don't know when was his first berserker rage. It might have been X-Men 133, where he just loses it. You know, goes into like a primal animal mode.
Is it the one where he's on the cover and he's like swiping?
Oh, 133?
Yeah, that is. That's his first like solo cover.
But no, that's his first solo issue. The whole story is him by himself.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was referring to that comic because that was 1980. That was 2 years prior to the Wolverine series.
I see. All the X-Men have fallen before the might of the Hellfire Club, all except one. Wolverine lashes out. When did they meet?
Who?
Mariko and Wolverine. Like, was there history before the series?
I don't remember there being, and I do remember when you saw the at the end of the series, they had the wedding invitation.
Yeah.
That wedding invitation actually becomes a cover of an X-Men comic, and I think that was like 171 or something.
Oh.
I'm probably going to be off on that number. I'm trying to remember.
172.
Oh, man, I was doing that from memory. That's not bad, man.
What did you say?
171.
Oh, not bad.
I haven't looked up that comic book. I'm just trying to remember like when I read it.
So that cover is from August 83.
Right, and this is from 82.
82, yeah. Cool.
But I don't know what was the first appearance of Mariko. That would have to be another question to Hey Google. X-Men 118.
Yep. Wolverine's now deceased fiance.
Spoiler alert. Oh, okay, through Sunfire. Okay. And they had a child.
That was 79.
Yep,
so
February.
Not too early, or not too much earlier than that.
No, but there was enough interest in the character and in Wolverine that Marvel felt it merited Chris Claremont's writing and Frank Miller's drawing to make a limited series.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were right. I mean, that all four of those covers or books, I should say, are, you know, iconic at this point, I feel like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one itself, the first one is the most iconic, of course. But and I really didn't care about number 3 until I saw that copy that you got. I'm sorry, in case, guys, if you haven't seen He was very lucky enough to meet go for a signing with Frank Miller, and he brought his own pen.
Yeah, from my own yellow paint pen.
And you got the book handy? I will let you take over.
I don't. I'm trying to.
Oh no!
I think it. Well,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
no, it's okay. I should have.
Yes. Oh my God, that yellow paint pen on that Wolverine book is just gorgeous. I love that. That might be my favorite signature that I've seen at all time.
It's up there, man.
It's the perfect color to go with that cover.
Yeah. I've said it before. Thank goodness I saw that random, eBay posting of that book with that signature, because I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I want that.
You had that Scooby-Doo. Ooh.
Yeah.
So how do you think that this storyline, though, just the storyline itself, how did you like it?
I thought it was good. I was really surprised that it was so like ninja-y. It was very, and obviously the Hand are like ninjas, but I just mean like Wolverine,
like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles use the foot.
Yeah, but like Wolverine sneaking around and like picking off people one by one, and instead of just being like Berserker just the whole way. So that was different than my expectations. It wasn't a bad thing. It just was interesting to me.
You expected him to be more like just walking through and I'm Wolverine. Either get out of my way or die.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool how they had the play that they were doing. It was it was a fun way to stage a murder. Yeah.
Which play was that again?
Oh, it was the classic
47 Ronin.
Yes. And it was just another nod to that's another theme this whole series has, was like, damn, Japan, you serious?
Well, Ronin is also a good analogy for Wolverine. So a Ronin is a samurai warrior. Yeah, a samurai warrior with no master.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Very true. And then also, damn, Yukio, you cold. You just were like, boop, blow up that car as soon as they get in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, gotcha. I was like, okay, wow, you're a little.
The Yukio in the Wolverine movie, not quite as cold, but up there. And the way they portrayed Mariko, not quite as intense as in the book, but more of a traditional and meeker character. So, because there are a few scenes, though, like the opening scenes in Wolverine, which are really great. Great watch. So, I'm not saying don't watch the movie.
Gotcha. In book 3, there was a nice monologue about like him doing some personal growth at the end of the book.
Oh, where it says that it finishes with, that's your mistake. I am a man, not an animal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool to see. See and read.
And the way that they drew his face, almost had him like looking up like with hope.
Yeah.
Taking pride in himself, which is not something that Logan generally does.
Right. He's very, the way he looks on the cover of book 3.
Well, I mean, this trade paperback, I think, was 1990 or 92 or something. Let's see, what is this? This is 87, but it also says second printing. All right, whatever it is. But if you look at the way his face is drawn on this cover.
Oh yeah. He almost looks like a Japanese mask demon thing.
Yeah, I mean, Miller was definitely busy this day. And the back cover is a black and white closer version of it.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, Miller was, I think, busy this day. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the initials. That's Frank Miller. Okay, He was drunk that day.
But yeah, I noticed a recurring theme in book 4.
Mm-hmm.
There was a line that says, "By destroying someone, you destroy yourself." Or it was along those lines. Yukio said that to Wolverine as he was about to like kill her, or she thought he was going to kill her. And earlier, Mariko had said the same thing when she was like thinking about her father, contemplating killing her father. So that's a recurring theme as well. Destroying someone else, you destroy part of yourself or yourself. And then I have a picture of a panel here where at the end where he says, after all the dust has settled, he says, "I can't forgive her for killing Asano," speaking of Yukio.
Yep.
"And I can never repay her for saving Mariko.
Mariko, yep.
So I let her go."
Yeah.
So that's just like what do you do? But it was really cool. It was a really cool rock and hard spot. And then probably my favorite part of the whole series was the second fight between Shingen and Wolverine. It gets to the point where in the panel it shows Wolverine grabbing Shingen by the collar, and then the next panel shows Wolverine's eyes red, and it has the word "snicked." So he ejected his claws right into his throat or face or whatever.
Yeah, and that never worked with me, even as a kid, because I'm like, he knows he's got retractable claws. Why would he allow somebody to get to bring their fist up to your face? And the way it was drawn almost made it look like he was it wasn't a so.
Yeah. Well, I think he had got him by the collar like this. Like he was grabbing.
I see it. Looks like he was grabbing his collar, but the panel before, it looks like he's reaching forward. He's got one hand holding the sword, the other hand starts to reach. Then either he's grabbing his collar or he's just got his fist right there. So
yeah, I don't know.
He's such a master, and he was able to like humble Yukio, who is not somebody that's easy to kill. And he beat Wolverine with a wooden stick. Granted, Wolverine wasn't at full capacity because he was still
dealing with the poison or whatever
from Yukio.
From the
Shuriken.
Yeah.
From Yukio, that he figured that was her that threw it.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I mean that's. I will say this: the ending with like the X-Men and the invite. I was like, this is really lighthearted and jarring for me coming out of the previous panels.
Yeah.
But I guess they needed to bring it back to. I assume this is more violent and like dark than the normal X-Men series.
172. That was right after they finished the Brood. That was pretty bloody.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 10, this being our first book that we've covered, what would you like to rate this series?
I'll give it I'm such like a 7 giver, I feel like.
Well, it is.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's a 7. It was. So I grew up watching Wolverine on the cartoon. Exactly. And this wasn't very. I mean, there were parts of it that were like that, but some parts were not, and the story was very foreign to me. But that's going to be the case going forward with most of these books, so I better fucking get used to it. But there were a lot of panels where I was like, oh yeah, you say that catchphrase line, or whatever it is. So it was gratifying in that regard. I was a little annoyed at some parts where he was like trying so hard to get back with her, Mariko, but he loved her. So
the heart wants what the heart wants. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm glad I read it. I can say now that I've read the Wolverine series from the early '80s now, and I'm glad I did.
When I first read this story, it blew my mind. I mean, as a kid and not seeing the last 40 years of Wolverine, and bear in mind, this is a 40-year-old story. I would have said it was the greatest story ever, and nobody will ever top it. It's the best thing ever. So for me, it was a 10. When I read this when I was 14 years old. now seeing how well it did or did not age, comparing it to the writing now and how they utilize, not insult, the reader's intelligence. In all honesty, I would put this closer to a 6 or a 7 myself. I mean, it's still a good story. It's got some really good arcs in it. I think it's a bit predictable in some points, and it's overly repetitive in saying the things it's already said.
Yes. That's my biggest snicked pick.
Ooh, I like that.
Thank you.
So we have got to get a spreadsheet going of different books that I can throw, storylines that I can throw in, that you can throw in, and we can alternate them back and forth. But more importantly, ones that we can add to this list from you, the viewer. What storyline arcs, whether it's from the golden age or the modern age, that you feel that we need to read. Doesn't have to be Marvel or DC. Independents are also welcome. We would prefer not to have something that's like a 40-book arc. Talk about like arc, something that happened within 6, 10.
Yeah, like for example, the Craven, the Hunters,
The Last Hunt.
Yeah, that's like I think a 6-issue story that spans 3 different Spidey series. So,
I would say the longest we would want to do would be like a 12-issue maxi series. Like I would love to reread the original Marvel Secret Wars.
Yeah, and I would love to read it for the first time. Mm-hmm. And then on the same note, we could do Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's
absolutely.
DC's big revamp in the 80s. So, but yeah, we're going to put it on. We're going to have polls on Patreon. So you strictly the Patreon, I think, are going to be able to direct us on what we should read.
But if even if you're watching this on YouTube, put down in the messages what books you would like us to read, and we will add these to the polls on Patreon.
Yes.
So this way, everybody has a voice. Even if you're just on YouTube, you can at least nominate somebody, but the official pick will be going to our Patreon members. But if your choice isn't even listed, then there's no chance. So give us all the information, all the feedback that you would like, and we would like to really start diving into reading these comics.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching and when we're listening on the podcast. Like we said, we're going to do this, try to get one out weekly. Once again, don't forget to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Team Ohana and check out our YouTube channel at Team Ohana. See, it's really nice we can do that. We can say it that way now that we have our handle. And mahalo.